Well, excellent job of blocking all the way across the board. Raymond getting a block again.
Before he was running through NFL defenses with his killer 4.3 speed, breaking opponents' ankles or laying his shoulder down to finish off a run, Jahmyr Gibbs lived a shockingly rough life. And despite playing at one of America's premier D1 football programs in college, getting there was no easy task. Unfortunately for Jahmyr, he grew up homeless and without the love of his parents, but that didn't stop him from reaching his childhood dream. This is the story of Jahmyr Gibbs and how he went from a homeless orphan to an NFL superstar. And his story starts in the town of Dalton, northwest of Georgia. Jahmyr Gibbs was born on March 20th, 2002. From the jump, a normal upbringing for Gibbs was not a luxury he got to experience. His parents could not care for him as a child. This left him in the hands of his grandmother, Willis, who kept an eye on him and made sure to raise him right. To add even more complications to this difficult start of life, Jahmyr and his grandmother often had to spend time in shelters that provided food, water, and a roof to sleep under. It was far from ideal for Jahmyr, but it gave him the toughness and resilience we see on the field today, and thankfully it wasn't all bad news. While at one of these shelters, he came across Greg and Dusty Ross, a kind and caring couple who often volunteered at one of the shelters called Family Promise. The Ross family took a liking to Jahmyr, who would often pass the time by playing football with their son, John. The family gradually became increasingly involved in Jahmyr's life and eventually adopted him in 2017. With a more stable environment at home, Jahmyr was able to dedicate more time to his education and athletic ventures, and boy, did it pay off. In 2018, he was initially ranked as a 3-star recruit as a junior, but then he erupted for Dalton High School and put his name firmly on the map. In 2019, his senior season, he rushed for 2,554 yards and 40 touchdowns, both leading the state, making him an easy pick for the All-State team, as well as the Georgia 6A Offensive Player of the Year. This was good enough to bump him up to a 4-star recruit, unsurprisingly turning the heads of scouts at many of the country's top college programs, including Michigan, Texas A&M, and Alabama. Despite these tempting names, Gibbs opted to remain closer to home, committing to Georgia Tech for the 2020 college season. This 2020 season would prove to be a strange one for Gibbs and everyone else due to COVID, which led to a slightly shortened season and, of course, limited crowds throughout. On the field, it was a tough one for the Yellow Jackets, with the team posting a 3-7 record, with the low point coming in a crushing 70-7 home loss to their rivals Clemson. However, as much as Georgia Tech struggled that year, Gibbs proved to be a rare bright spot on the offense, leading the team with 763 scrimmage yards despite only featuring in 7 of the 10 games. It was a good start, but his sophomore year in 2021 was even better, playing a full 12-game season for the first time and averaging over 100 scrimmage yards a game. His best single-game performance came on October 30th on the road against Virginia, in which Georgia Tech fell 48-40 in a real offensive showcase. Gibbs put up 156 yards in total that day, including averaging over 10 yards per carry on the ground, capped off with a 71-yard touchdown run in the third quarter. The run is gloriously simple in its execution, with Jahmyr simply finding a hole, bursting through, and showing off his blazing speed to leave Virginia defenders in the dust. Jahmyr did everything he could to help his team win games in 2021, but following that Virginia loss, the team would go on to lose their final 5 games, ending with a sorry 3-9 record on the year, ranking them joint last in the ACC with Duke. Gibbs's performances at Georgia Tech did earn him second-team All-American honors, but after back-to-back 3-win seasons, you can't blame him for wanting to pursue a legitimate shot at a national title. And who better to try and do that with than Nick Saban's Alabama Crimson Tide, who he joined in 2022. This proved to be an excellent move for all parties involved, with Gibbs hitting a career high in both yards and touchdowns, becoming a core part of Bama's offense, led by future #1 pick Bryce Young. Gibbs averaged over 6 yards per carry on his way to 1,370 scrimmage yards and 10 total touchdowns, earning him second-team All-SEC honors for the year. Of course, his Alabama squad was several levels above the Georgia Tech offense he'd played on for 2 years prior, with Saban's boys once again amongst the very best teams in the NCAA. However, the team's chances at another national championship were halted by 2 narrow losses in 3 weeks in the middle of the season, despite the best efforts of Jahmyr. In each of these losses, against Tennessee and LSU, Gibbs had excellent games, recording over 150 yards in both. He notched 3 touchdowns in Alabama's thrilling 52-49 loss to Tennessee before collecting 163 scrimmage yards in their narrow 32-31 loss to LSU. With Alabama missing out on the college football playoffs for just the second time in 8 years, Gibbs would close out the year and ultimately his college career with another impressive showing in a bowl game. In the 2022 season's Sugar Bowl against the Kansas State Wildcats, he picked up 142 scrimmage yards in a 45-20 hammering. Rather than return for his senior year, Gibbs opted to declare for the 2023 draft, leaving his successful college days behind. In that draft, he was the second running back taken after the Falcons selected Texas's Bijan Robinson, heading to the Motor City to play for Dan Campbell's Detroit Lions. Drafting a running back as highly as that is often considered a risk in the modern NFL. In 2024, for example, we didn't see one taken until pick 46. Gibbs isn't any normal running back though, and the Lions clearly had plenty of faith in him to be a true game changer. Throughout college, Gibbs showed himself to be a major weapon as both a runner and receiver, while also proving his versatility through his effectiveness as a returner. Everything pointed towards him being a useful weapon for Detroit and a key part of their dramatic turnaround. But the selection did still raise a few eyebrows, mainly because the team had just spent up for David Montgomery in free agency. Montgomery had been signed after 4 fairly successful years in Chicago, despite toiling away on a poor team. As it turned out, the pick was a stroke of genius, with Gibbs offering the perfect complement to Montgomery in the Lions' backfield. To begin with, Gibbs wasn't hugely involved, getting fewer than 10 carries in 3 of his first 4 games, as Campbell and his coaching staff plotted how best to utilize his clearly exceptional skill set. After missing some time with an injury, Gibbs managed his first 100-yard game in a crushing 38-6 loss to Baltimore, before his true breakout game in Week 8 at home to the Las Vegas Raiders. David Montgomery was on the sidelines for the game, and Gibbs seized his chance, taking 26 carries and 5 receptions for an unbelievable 189 total yards and 1 touchdown. It was a very impressive effort for just his 6th career game in the pros, giving fans at Ford Field a glimpse of what this offense really could look like. Gibbs had proven he could be a real thorn in the side of defenses, and more importantly, his presence had helped instill a winning culture in a Lions team that so desperately needed it. As the year went on, Gibbs and Montgomery would continue to share carries, working as one of the best running back tandems in football, complementing each other's skill sets very well. By the end of the year, the Lions had the league's 5th best rushing offense in terms of yardage and the joint best in rushing touchdowns with 27. Montgomery helped himself to 1,015 yards and 13 touchdowns at 4.6 yards per carry, and Gibbs wasn't far behind, with 945 yards and 10 touchdowns at 5.2 yards per carry. For his efforts, Gibbs was named to the Pro Bowl and the PFWA All-Rookie team. The work wasn't finished quite yet, though, and both running backs were just as dominant in the playoffs, helping Detroit secure their first postseason victory since 1991. That's 3 decades of pain and agony, but Jahmyr did not shy away on the big stage, scoring a touchdown in each of the team's 3 playoff games, while collecting 144 yards on the ground at 5 yards per carry and 94 yards through the air. There would be no trip to the Super Bowl, unfortunately, as the team fell just short against the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game. Nevertheless, a Lombardi Trophy was now in sights, and Detroit Lions fans are now finally getting legitimate hopes that their team can win it all. The Lions returned with a vengeance in 2024, winning 12 of their first 13 games. Gibbs picked up exactly where he left off, proving to be just as much of a handful in the backfield alongside his partner in crime, David Montgomery. Together, the fearsome running backs were the heart of the offense, representing the Lions' identity of grit, aggression, and relentless dominance. Either Montgomery or Gibbs got into the end zone in each of the team's first 11 games, with the Week 13 fixture against Chicago being the first time all season that neither player scored. Even then, the duo racked up 175 yards on the ground between them. There is just no stopping Montgomery and Gibbs, and the duo celebrated this by taking on a catchy nickname, Sonic and Knuckles. The speed of Gibbs makes him Sonic, and the power of Montgomery makes him Knuckles, perfectly summarizing how well these two complement each other. Collectively, they can blast through, over, or around any opponent who gets in their way, and if one of them doesn't get you, you can be sure the other one will. Gibbs, in particular, has established himself as one of the league's most dangerous weapons. He earned the Sonic nickname because of his speed, but he absolutely has the toughness and power to truck tacklers and find the line to gain on a second effort. He offers up a rare 3-down skill set that means you never have to take him off the field, and that he is always a threat to take any play to the house. Jahmyr has taken the NFL like a roaring lion, and his ceiling as a pro is sky high. He looks set to be a menace for years to come, but all Detroit fans care about is getting that elusive Super Bowl trophy. With Sonic and Knuckles in the backfield, that reality has never looked closer. When do you think it will happen? Let me know in the comments. After being drafted 12th overall in the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft, it's fair to say that expectations were sky high for Jahmyr. Having already dazzled at Georgia Tech and Alabama, Gibbs delivered a phenomenal rookie season in Detroit, amassing 1,261 scrimmage yards and earning all rookie honors. The future for Jahmyr and Detroit looks brighter than ever, and we're excited to see them hoist a Lombardi in the Motor City in the near future. If you enjoyed this video, stick with the halftime show and watch some of our other videos like these.